Let's talk about what I got up to in August. G'day to all you lovely people and welcome back to my channel. I'm Kathy and today I'm going to tell you what I got up to in August, which is not much. Really, it has been so quiet and so wet. It has not stopped raining. Well, not today. Today is beautiful. Look at it. But honestly, when I tried to record this video a few days ago, I couldn't because it was so gloomy. And that, unfortunately, has been most of August. Lots and lots and lots of rain. We generally don't get a lot of rain in winter, but this year has been unusual. And apparently, spring is going to be very wet as well. I don't care. I just want spring to get here because I am so over the cold. I think everyone gets like that towards the end of winter. You're just ready for a change, for nicer weather. And then every now and again I'd go outside and I'd see something flowering and I'd be like, oh, spring is coming, spring is coming. Yeah. So I haven't been up to all that much. Really, I don't know where the month went. It's all a blur. I did finally get my new dryer put in place and I love it because now I can actually access it. I don't have to wait for somebody to come here to get the clothes out of the dryer. I can actually get stuff out by myself, which I love. I am a very independent person and it sometimes can get very frustrating when I can't do very simple things that many people take for granted, like getting your clothes out of a dryer. It's those little things though that make such a difference to your state of mind, to how you feel about yourself, about your independence. One thing I have been doing is going through all my ebooks because I have a lot of ebooks. And yeah, this is partly because I am obsessive compulsive. I've been looking for better covers because some of them don't have very good covers or they're old covers, and nowadays there are so many more covers available than when, for example, I bought these books years ago. So I'm having a lot of fun, but wow, it is so labor intensive. It takes me forever. I'm only up to C. And I don't know how much longer it's going to take me, but that's all right. Gives me something to do. And of course, when I'm going through them, I then get distracted thinking, oh, that one sounds interesting. I should read this. I'm trying to think of what else I did. And honestly, I don't think I've done all that much this month other than messing around with my ebooks or, recording and editing, or recording when I can if the weather cooperates, which it has not always done. I haven't even bought a lot of books. I'm hoping that it might have plateaued just as it had with plants. It's not that I won't buy any, but I'm just not buying as many as I used to. Thank God. Well, so my bank account says anyway. I'm mainly buying second-hand books. I'm trying to get the complete set of the Dresden Files in hardcover, which has not proved easy, but I'm enjoying the hunt. I'm enjoying looking and trying to find good copies of the books in hardcover, and there are 17 novels. I'm adding to it slowly, but hopefully eventually it'll get there. I have, however, got all my Georgette Hayes in the same edition except for one. I haven't been able to find that one yet, but I'm just loving having them all matching. Personally, I like it when I'm collecting a set of books to have them matching. It always drives me nuts when I have one paperback or trade paperback and several hardcovers or a mix of different types. I want them all to be in the same set, even covers that are kind of in the same style. Because if you do buy books, you probably know that the UK editions are usually different from the US editions. And sometimes I like the US ones and sometimes I like the UK. And I can't stand it when I have, say, a trilogy One is in the UK edition and the others are in US because they don't match. And I want them to match because I think it looks so much nicer on the shelves. Yeah, I know that's obsessive, but I love my books. You guys know that already. So what else have I been up to? My knitting. After I finished my teal blue jumper that I wore at my last wrap-up video, the red version of the same jumper developed this large hole on the elbow. Wow, I cannot stand mending my jumpers. I hate that more than anything. I honestly would prefer to just knit a new jumper entirely. And yet it seems I've been doing a lot of mending. I'm getting all these holes on the elbows of my jumpers and I thought, what's going on here? I don't usually have that much mending to do. But it seems I've been leaning my left arm on a surface that has just worn away at the wall. Which means I have to cut the sleeves and re-knit them. I don't patch them up because they don't look very nice once they're patched. And if I've got extra wool, I prefer to re-knit them. And after finishing my jumper last month, which had a lot of cables on the sleeves, the last thing I wanted was to do more cable work on another sleeve. So it took me a few weeks before I could bring myself to do it, but it's repaired and I can wear it now. And at the moment, I am knitting the jumper I had started last year. But the way it's going, the weather will get too warm and I won't be able to knit that one anyway. Might have to wait for next year. I'm in no rush. I have more than enough jumpers to wear. But because I'm not knitting a lot, I'm not really watching much. And the truth is, I've hardly watched anything this month. I have been watching a little bit more of Vikings because I'm waiting to reach a certain point in the series and then I'm done with Vikings. But I've actually enjoyed rewatching the first few seasons because it had been many years since I watched them. I have not watched any Supernatural, surprisingly, nor have I watched Stranger Things, which I wanted to watch. What I did watch, however, was the original Star Wars trilogy, probably for the 50th time. Seriously, I can quote you all the dialogue in these films because I love them so much. I usually watch them every year, but it's been several years since I last saw them. I decided to watch them because I want to read the Thrawn trilogy by Timothy Zahn, and I thought I will so much more enjoy the books if I rewatch the films, so which is no hardship as far as I'm concerned. I just love these films so much. And I was actually talking to somebody today about how I got all choked up when Darth Vader dies. How geeky is that? Yeah, that's all right. I'm a nerd and I make no apologies for that. I did put up a community post that I'm intending to read the Thrawn trilogy by Timothy Zahn, as well as the Rift War saga by Raymond E. Feist. And anyone who is interested in reading along, please do. So I guess I should tell you what I've been reading this month, which has been such a mixed bag of things. I have read some books which I absolutely loathed and some books which I've absolutely loved. It has been all over the place, really, and such a mix of genres too. I've been keeping track of what I've been reading so I can share it with you guys. And when I was looking at the list the other day, I thought, wow, yeah, I'm going from one extreme to another. I read The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis, part of the Narnia series. It is actually, I think, the first book I read when I was a child, and I haven't read it since. I really enjoyed it, but unfortunately, much of my recollection of that story came from the film, which was really disappointing in some ways. I prefer to actually visualize this world, the characters, through reading the book, but the characters, for example, look like the actors from the movie. And whilst I really did enjoy it, it didn't have as big an impact on me as I expected it to. I actually think I like The Magician's Nephew better. I think The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, though, has this awesome premise of this child stumbling into this new world through a wardrobe. And I was talking to someone and saying how I remember having hidden in a wardrobe, for example, when we were playing hide and seek and thinking, what if I can search through the clothes? Maybe I can get to Narnia as well. And of course, that just made me love the book so much when I was a child. It still holds up. I don't want to imply that it doesn't. And nothing I've said should give you the indication that I didn't enjoy it, because I really did. I loved it. I just found it a little bit more simplistic or too heavily influenced in my own mind by the movie, which was a shame. But I did also read The Horse and His Boy, which is book 3, and that one I really loved. It has talking horses, and I've always loved horses, but particularly talking horses. Mr. Ed was a show I never missed as a child, and I loved the Francis the Talking Mule films. So it was like, I want a horse that talks, please. Yeah, I always did, even as a child. Both Narnia books were just such a delight to read because they are very well written, actually. And whilst they are children's books, they are not written in this kind of dumbed down language. They are written very well, which adults can also enjoy. They kind of remind me of the magic of, say, the Harry Potter books, which I think are enjoyable no matter what age you are. It takes you back to your childhood fantasies, I think. I most likely will be reading a few more in the next month as well. But I'm taking my time, and I think I'm enjoying them more for that rather than reading them all together at once. Then I finished Whispers Underground by Ben Aronovich, the third book in the Rivers of London series. Yeah, I'm done. I'm done with this series. It did not appeal to me at all. They are just like police procedurals, and I just found them so boring. I honestly had to force myself to finish the third book. I'm sorry, but reading about our main character writing witnesses' reports, yeah, not interesting. Not to me, anyway. I'm not even loving the characters all that much. I also sometimes don't like his writing style because he comes across as very smug and superior, and I just don't think he is as clever as he thinks he is. I have read that people think the Rivers of London books are very witty. Yeah, I don't completely agree with that. And honestly, the descriptions of places and the minutiae in police procedure, for me as a fantasy reader, not interesting at all. If I want to read about police procedure, that's one thing, but I certainly don't want it in a fantasy series. I don't even feel the magic or fantasy elements in this series have progressed all that much. Now, I have read that people say the series improves. I don't think I'm going to find out. Yeah, 3 books I think is more than enough to give me an indication if this is for me, and I don't think it is. So it looks like I am done with the Rivers of London, at least at this point in time. Whilst I was going through my ebooks, I came across the author Emily Loring, who I had read when I was a teenager and I really enjoyed. I never got to read a lot of her books though because they just weren't that popular. She writes romances with an element of mystery. Usually some mystery needs to be resolved in her books, but the mysteries are usually a minor part of her stories. She is of the same vintage as Agatha Christie, and I really enjoy reading about characters living, say, 80 years ago, 90 years ago, because their lives are so different to what ours are. How women were treated is so different to how we treat women today. And she has a really beautiful, almost lyrical style in writing at times. But like I said, they are mainly romances, so it is more about the relationships. Without being excessive, There is no hot sex in any of these. No, they are far more restrained than that. In a way, they are similar in style to older Austen books or Hare books, but set in the 1930s or 40s. And I read 4 of Emily Loring's books, ones I've never read before, and I'm thoroughly enjoying them. I have got a few more, and I'm sure I'll read them in the future, but 4 was more than enough. And perhaps because I was reading romances. I also came across some historical romances which I've never read, and I thought, oh, I'll try those as well. Wow! How much did I hate them? They were just such a waste of time. One wasn't that bad. It was just so boring and predictable, which is probably why I stopped reading historical romances years and years ago. But these 2 authors are much more recent than the ones that I used to read, which is back in the 80s or 90s. And it's a different style of historical romance, but wow, still so boring, the first one. And then I thought, okay, I'll try another one. Maybe that one will be better. Hell no, it was 1,000 times worse. It was so poorly done. The characterizations were just ludicrous. We are told what the characters are like at the beginning, and yet they behave completely contrary to that characterization throughout the book. Oh my God. I hated the second one so much that I immediately deleted it off my e-reader. In fact, I deleted both of them. I thought I'm never going to want to read these authors again, and I certainly don't ever want to read those. So that was a little fun foray into a genre I haven't touched in a long time. And I think actually I read the Rivers of London book in between, which I really didn't like. And then I had these 2 historical romances, which I didn't like either. So I thought, God, I need to find something that I'll enjoy. So I picked up Blake Crouch's Dark Matter, which I had bought a few months ago. I've been watching some book YouTubers who were recommending Blake Crouch. And my understanding is he also wrote Wayward Pines. I've seen the TV show. I haven't read the books. So I thought, I actually like the show. I'd be interested to see if I like any of his books. And boy, did I love Dark Matter. It is science fiction, I guess, maybe even speculative fiction. And it is just a page turner. I could not stop reading it. In fact, I would have stayed up all night, but by 6 a.m. I realized I'm not close to finishing, so I better go to bed. Oh, there's nothing better than reading a book that you are loving so much you can't put it down and you don't even realize what time it is. I love this book so much that I immediately recorded a video on it because I just wanted to talk about it. And you can expect to see that video very soon. So I'm not going to say anything more except I highly recommend it. In fact, I thought I need to read more of this author, so I've already ordered several more books by him. Then I read Louise Penny. I think her first book is called Still Life. Louise Penny is a murder mystery writer. She has been referred to as a cozy murder mystery writer in the style of Agatha Christie. Her main character is Chief Inspector Gamache, and the books are based in Quebec in Canada. I loved the first book. I was so enjoying her style of writing. I loved learning so much more about Quebec that I didn't know, and I thought she did a really good job with the mystery as well. And I enjoyed it so much that I read 2 others by her. I think the second one is called Fatal Grace, and the third one is called Cruelest Month. When I started the first book, this murder took place at this very charming little village called 3 Pines. I want to live there. I seriously do. It just sounds idyllic. And I think most of these stories, and she has at least, I think, 13 or so books, possibly more, take place at Three Pines, I think. It's a lot of murders for a little village, but regardless, it is just so charming. The characters are so well drawn and very distinctive and individualistic. And I really like the Chief Inspector himself, Gamache, as well as his subordinates. There's also some other themes running through the books regarding, for example, the natives in Canada, which I'm finding really interesting. Plus, I guess the tensions between the English and French speakers in Canada. It gave me a slice of Quebec society, which I had no knowledge of before. So I'm really enjoying that, as well as the murder mysteries themselves. And I love the characters. Yeah, if I love a character, I usually will enjoy a series. So I highly recommend it if you're looking for murder mysteries, because it seems I am at the moment. I'm searching for more cozy murder mystery writers, or writers similar in style to Agatha Christie. I only have a few Hercule Poirot books left, and I didn't want to finish them until I found some more authors. But now I feel like I have quite a few Louise Penny books to get through, so it might be time to finish the Poirot books. I haven't read any in several months now. Another murder mystery writer who I had seen recommended on several different websites as similar to Agatha Christie was Lucy Foley. Yeah, don't believe it for a second. She is nothing like Agatha Christie whatsoever. I read her book called The Guest List, and wow, I loathed this book so much for so many reasons. I cannot tell you how much I hated it. Probably as much as I hated the Shadow and Bone books last year. This was the worst book I have read this year. I could not stand it and had to force myself to finish it. But in the end, I think the last 100 pages, I just skimmed through because it was not what I wanted. If you're intending to read The Guest List, thinking it might be like And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, no, nothing like it. Reminded me more of Big Little Lies than it did of any Agatha Christie book I've ever read. Now, perhaps you all like it for what it was. Maybe it will appeal to some people, but when it is being advertised, when it is being touted everywhere as similar to Agatha Christie, sorry, there is no similarities, except that a murder takes place. That's the only thing. I have such strong feelings about this book that I've done a video on that one as well. Unfortunately, it's been one of those months where my reading was just up and down, up and down. There are some things that I absolutely adored and some things that I absolutely loathed. And this was one of them, because I was still in the mood for a murder mystery and felt so dissatisfied after The Guest List. My friend Jacqueline, who I buddy read a lot with, she is a huge fan of the Longmire books by Craig Johnson. I've never seen the show, and which is probably a good thing, because if I had, then I would be less inclined to read the books. But because she's such a fan of the books, I thought I need to try them, see if I like them. So I read the first two Longmire books. I can't remember what they're called off the top of my head, but I'll put them up on the screen anyway. I really enjoyed them. So much more than Lucy Foley, because they are proper mysteries. And the characters are so well drawn, so charming, particularly Walt Longmire, the main character. The books are written in the first person, so we also get to see some of his internal dialogue without it being excessive. And he is so charming and so funny. I actually laughed out loud as I was reading the books. I guess you could say they're kind of police procedurals, because Longmire is a sheriff in a small town in Wyoming. And his best friend is Harry Standing Bear, I think he's called. So there is also some insight into this blending, if there is, between the Native Americans and the others in this small town. At this point, I'm not going to say I'm going to read all of them. I don't know. It depends on whether they start getting repetitive, because that can happen, unfortunately, with murder mysteries, or mysteries anyway. But at this point, I'm so enjoying this character and so many of the others that I will read more in the near future. So that made up a lot for Lucy Foley. Again, because I was going through my ebooks, I came across Jane Castle, who is Jane Ann Krentz, who also writes as Amanda Quick. She is one of the few romance writers that I discovered, I think, in my 30s that I liked. And she writes different kinds of romances depending upon which pseudonym she uses. Amanda Quick's are all historical romances. Jane Krentz are contemporary ones. And I think Jane Castle is more paranormal, supernatural kind of romances. And they are mainly romances, which I have gotten tired of over the years, but it had been so long that I thought I'll read one. And I cannot recall the name of the one I read, but I'll put it on the screen. It's a very, very fast read. There is a mystery as well. I liked it, but that was more than enough for me. I have really not been enjoying romances all that much, unless it is more this older kind of style, like Georgette Heyer or Emily Loring, or say the Bronte sisters or Austen, that kind of thing. But it was a bit of a switch, I guess, from murder mysteries, which I've read a lot of this month. And the classic I read for this month was The Stepford Wives by Ira Levin, which I really enjoyed. It was written, I think, in the 70s, so 50 years ago? And I hate to say it, but it is still relevant today. He has a very kind of clean and spare way of writing. Not a lot of excessive words, which I really like. And the story is just, brilliant. It is about this small town, I think it's Stepford, where it seems many of the women are idealistic versions of housewives, obsessed with cleaning and looking good all the time, and don't seem to have any interest outside of being a homemaker. But what happens to the women as a result of what the men in the book do? When I finished it, I was like, oh, bloody bastard men. And I don't mean to be unfair, but that is how they are portrayed in the book, that they care more about keeping women oppressed and suppressed and being these idealistic dolls rather than living, breathing women with their own independent thoughts or actions. I think most women, if not all, would be outraged at what the men did to the women. It's meant to be satirical and obviously an extreme exaggeration of the fears that men had in relation to women's liberation and what impact it would have on them personally in their home lives, for example. I really loved so many of the things that Levin raised because they are still relevant today. Sometimes it feels like women are still being oppressed. They're still being shortchanged. We are not given encouragement to grow to our full potential. It's not a very long book either, but I highly recommend it if you haven't read it. And actually, Levin has also written Rosemary's Baby and The Boys from Brazil, both of which I think I'm going to read in the future. After I finished that, I thought, I want to read a bit more science fiction. And I was thinking, Asimov is considered one of the classics of science fiction. So I thought I have to read some of his books. So I started with some of the short stories by Asimov. And then I read Caves of Steel, which is, I think, the first book in the Robot series. It reminded me a little bit of the film I, Robot, but I think they've only taken bits and pieces from the book. It was quite different, and it was also a mystery, which was interesting. But what I loved was this world that Asimov has envisaged, our future world. I do not want to live on this world at all, no. And a lot of the themes that he brings up are issues that are also current today, and I think this was written back in the 50s. And because I really enjoyed Caves of Steel, and I think the next book takes place on another planet, even better, I'm going to finish this series. I think it's only 3 books though. And I might read some of his short stories in between as well about robots, because he has quite a few. I'm just not a huge fan of short stories. I definitely prefer novels. I'm trying to broaden my range in books. Sometimes it's nice to mix it up. And this month was a real mix-up, wasn't it? Yeah. And last, which I haven't finished, I'm actually right in the middle, is Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn. I have read this before many times, and I've always loved this series. It is, in my opinion, out of all the Star Wars fan fiction I've read, it is the only series that captures the characters perfectly. The first time I read them, and this time, I feel like I'm still watching the films. But there's also the introduction of so many cool and interesting characters. And Thrawn, the antagonist, is one of the coolest characters I have read about in many years. So I'm thoroughly enjoying Heir to the Empire, and I suspect I'll probably just read the whole trilogy altogether because I just love it so much. Highly recommend it, and I'd love it if you guys decided to read this series with me, or the Magician series. Okay, let's move on now to my plants. My garden is starting to come to life, and I imagine by the end of next month I will see major changes to my garden. I have a lot of stuff to do outside. A lot of plants died, which I haven't even bothered taking out of the pots because what's the point? I'll do it in spring when I decide what I'm going to put in its place, if anything. So I'm looking forward to getting into the garden because I have not been able to do any gardening in months now. As for my indoor plants, I have had a few more deaths. God, yeah, I'm a plant killer. I keep killing plants. One is my Homelamina camouflage, which I had for 3 years. Yeah, it did not recover. I'm fairly certain it was the cold because nothing else had changed, and there was certainly no pest, but it has died. So I think I'm going to see if I can replace it when the weather gets a bit warmer. The second plant that, wow, I'm just so over this plant. My Ficus elastica scheveriana. I've had this, I think, for 1.5 years, and what a little diva. She dropped all her leaves when I first got her. She has prime position, will not grow much at all. I think she has 3 leaves and one is a little burnt because of the sun in autumn. She got pests last year, spider mites, and she got them again this year. The only plant. So I am not happy with this plant at all. I mean, they're beautiful. There's no denying it, but she looks so boring and drab right now. And I'm kind of regretting that I got rid of my other Ficus elastica because this one has proved just so difficult throughout. I'm thinking I might put her in a smaller pot. Perhaps she'll be happier. She does stay wet for quite a long time. Perhaps she's lost some roots, I don't know. I haven't really taken many of my plants out of their pots because it is winter. I'm waiting for the weather to be a bit nicer before I do repotting, and boy, do I have a lot of repotting to do. And the other one I want to mention is my black cardinal philodendron. This plant I have owned for 3 years. It gets rust, I have to cut off the leaves. It grows so slowly that I'm done with it. Yeah, I've decided I'm going to give it away. I just don't want it anymore. I want a plant that thrives in my home, not one that takes months to unfurl a leaf and then kill off another because it's got some issues. If I can, I might put it outside, not in the ground, because I do think they might grow big, though I'm not 100% sure. But otherwise, I'll see if I can find a new home for it. It just looks the same. 3 years and it looks just as bad as it always has. He's called Mr. Ugly for a reason. Yeah. All right. As for plants that are looking good, my monster, I have to show you, he is putting out 2 new leaves. He actually killed off all his bottom leaves. They all went yellow and died. And I'm assuming that's because he's going to put out all this growth. He did exactly the same last year. It's not pests, it's just him discarding older leaves and having new ones. But now I have all this bare patch down the bottom. And I was considering buying another Monstera baby one and putting him in there, but he'll just grow as big as this one, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I have been thinking about cutting him, though I do not want to cut him at all, but I might and plant that back in the pot. Just not sure yet. I also would like him to spread sideways. I just don't have the space for it. And the other 2 plants I want to show you are my Scindapsus pictus. I have 2. I have the Argyrius and I have the Exotica. The Argyrius was much bigger than the Exotica when I first bought them. And she's finally starting to do well. She is right behind me. You can see her just here. She's actually starting to climb up to the hawk. And I'm hoping she'll get big enough at one point that I can actually fix her to the window. I've tried this plant in different positions. She likes this spot the best. Strange, isn't it? When I've had her in very bright light, she just doesn't seem to be as happy. Whereas here, she is really enjoying it. And I just think she looks so good behind me. And the second is my Exotica, which was, I think, 1 leaf when I got it. This thing is doing so well. And it sits at least 2 meters back from my east-facing window. So I'd say it's getting low to medium light. Closer to the low than to medium. Doesn't matter. This thing is growing so well. And she looks so good. And I think I'm going to have to put her in a bigger pot and just let her go crazy. I really love the Scindapsus pictus. I love the colouring on their leaves. The Argyrius has much darker leaves with that splattering. The Exotica is much lighter to look at. They're quite different. I have even considered combining the 2 in the one pot, but I'm not sure. I actually think I prefer to have them separate for now. I'll consider maybe taking a cutting when my Exotica grows a bit bigger because it's still very small. Regardless, they're doing very well. And I really do love these 2. And they've proven very easy as well. Always a plus in my book. Well, that's all I have for you guys today. Now you know I would love to hear what you guys got up to in August. Tell me what you've been reading, what you've been watching, what you've been doing. Tell me how your plants are doing. You know, I always want to hear. And you can put it down in the comments or you can contact me on Instagram. Thank you also very much for watching. I do appreciate all of you. If you like this video, then yes, you can do the usual. You can like, comment and subscribe. I hope you all have a beautiful day and I will see you next time. Bye.